legends? How's everybody doing? Let's go. Let's analyze the situation here all together for the price of Bitcoin. Make sure to destroy that like button, guys. We did hit some new highs yesterday. That was not the top. That was not the rejection. How is everyone doing? Make sure to destroy that like button. Let me just go quickly through the comment section. So we did get a wick to the upside very early this morning or late last night, depending on where you at. Okay, in this amazing world, you know, we did get that movement to $107,000. And out of curiosity, that high, okay, let me know if you can hear me and see me, guys. Just checking out the volume. These lower high wicks, okay, very difficult if you wanted to get into this swing failure pattern, but ultimately we did hit the high of this lower high range wicks, many wicks here at 107,100, where we do know that there was still some liquidity sitting right there. And we just ever so slightly hit that level, ever so slightly, as you can see here on the chart. Exactly hitting that lower high here from January. This was not the lower high yesterday. We talked about the possibility of the price, you know, moving down impulsively. However, the price did get a major pump midnight my time, and we came all the way up to those lower highs. Very sniper trade short, I have to say. Okay, possibly a swing failure pattern, preferably on this short trade. We did have some lower highs from January, right? Those lower highs from January of this year is where we had those liquidity pockets, right? We got some really nice lower highs from the first few weeks of January, and we just got that extra wick to get above 107,100. The question is right now, you know, is this the time for the larger pullback, right? Getting below $100,000. I asked the poll yesterday. We're going to be doing the technical analysis, the major levels of support that we do have, of resistance. Very difficult shorting area, but without a doubt, you know, this area is interesting for some swing short positions. There's no doubt about it. I had some aggressive people in the comment section yesterday saying, I don't care. This is going to get an epic pullback. I'm going to short. I'm going to add to my shorts. No stop loss. I don't know what the kind of strategy is behind this. But overall, people just saying, yeah, I don't care about this pump from yesterday. I mean, depending on their risk management, maybe they added to the position. Maybe, you know, we realized the potential of the price rejecting from this zone. And what makes more sense is that we are forming a flat structure. And this is, you know, my opinion. I do think that we will be revisiting these highs just because of how we moved up from this consolidation. I cannot map the situation of this finishing as an impulsive move since we started the correction, right? How did we move up there from this low? If we are considering this the low, or this the low, we moved up very corrective, right? You don't have a major impulsive move or a contracting move to the upside in a 5-wave structure, finishing an impulse and getting a super massive pullback to get below, you know, 95, even 90K levels. That would be nice for a big pullback on the higher time frame. But the way that the price has moved up here is telling me that, yeah, all-time highs is likely going to happen, right? Or at least taking out these highs. Preferably, we do see a start of an impulse, right? Very aggressively with your wave 1 already. And then your wave 3 to finally get to all-time high at some point. I do see the price potentially going to lower levels. That is, you know, that is something that, you know, I do see happening. I do see a potential 3-wave structure here to the upside, hit some resistance levels. We're going to talk about several scenarios right now, but one of the scenarios that we were looking at throughout the last couple of days is the potential of a flat. Just because the price from this pivot, right, or from, you know, this range basically, you can count either a flat structure here for your A wave, or you can count here a 3-wave structure WXY. And then this wave to the upside also in a 3-wave structure. Now, of course, we do have a little pump here, a nice little pump yesterday, getting that double top sentiment, right? Lots of people very likely wanted to short down here. We did mention on the live stream, you know, this would not be a great zone to short. I mean, if you have no stop loss and you just want to add to the position, then you're kind of fine, right? But if you do that, if you trade like that, then eventually if the price decided to break out with a huge amount of volume, then you're going to lose, you know, you're going to get your account burnt, right? So it's, you know, not the best way to trade. I think a lot of people would be confident that this would be a local top zone, and any tops at the highs here is likely going to be a short liquidation event, right? Short liquidation hunt. And then the price is going to finally get that dump to the downside. You know, double tops is the best option in this zone, especially considering the January, you know, lower highs. You had 2 levels here for your SFP. We actually broke pretty, you know, nicely from the first one and then tapped the next one for that extra liquidity grab. And then the price pulling back pretty aggressively early this morning. And we did realize, you know, the potential of this ABC flat. That usually your C waves of a flat are pretty aggressive. They take less time than your A wave, if we're counting this as your A wave in a 3-wave structure, and we're counting this as your B wave in a 3-wave structure. You know, this is kind of the classic move down where you're gonna literally, it's gonna be a liquidation event, right? You know, was kind of interested in a possible long scalp trade here to form a higher low, but it's getting a little bit choppy. We are getting some bullish CVD divergence. I'm going to go with the strategy that Devilt is, you know, providing in the legends. And for now, as we're getting this aggressive drop, a breakout of trend here would be relatively interesting just to take out these highs. Okay, so that might be a little bit of a possible scalp position that we could get into unless the price does break down from here, right? Getting a little bit of an aggressive move to the downside. We do have some bullish CVD divergence. This looks very one-wavy. After a major drop down, it would be nice to get some kind of a 3-wave corrective structure. So the possibility of forming a higher low here is there. However, a 3-wave corrective structure could always be a flat as well, right? You can claim the lows, form a double bottom, and then reclaim the lower highs of today. So this is why you either form a higher low here, or you can claim the lows and form a double bottom. The kind of safest way here is just looking for a 3-wave, and this is only an internal scalp, guys, okay? Just to the highs. You know, the kind of good bet here would be the breakout of the trend, just realizing that a zigzag here after this major drop would kind of make sense, right? The problem with these ABC movements, if it is going to be an ABC, because this could be a running flat finished already, and we actually get the rally. So, you know, I think a kind of a safer trade would be waiting for the break of the trend here. Just realizing that you are looking very corrective in this region. And if you break trend, then what you would be looking at, of course, is these lower highs of today to be claimed, right? You're looking for a, you know, long stop loss beneath the low after the breakout, and look for the price to actually get that rally to the upside. And that's just looking at a ABC idea. It might be a 1, 2, 3, but the breakout trend here would be a good option, just because the bounce that we had today is very one-wavy, right? It looks very one-wavy, and preferably you do get a 3-wave structure. However, the price is maintaining here. The possibility of a flat is there, so I would really consider these lows as a possible double bottom, just for a possible flat here. Get the bounce, liquidity grab of the lows, and you're looking for the liquidity grab of the highs. So a double bottom is an option, or the break of trend would be also an option, just for an intraday setup here, guys, just because we do have also some pretty significant bullish CVD divergence. We got some shorts right now entering the market pretty aggressive, at least on Bybit. We got some higher lows on price action, lower lows on CVD. Also on other exchanges, we do get some lower lows. And it looks pretty interesting, okay? So on Bybit, we do have those lower lows pretty aggressively on the CVD, which could give you that support right now. And this is just internally, right? Just a little scalp scenario that I wanted to share in the YouTube live stream. But let's go overall here through the higher time frame scenarios. And yeah, this is one thing right now. The price action, how did it finish this 5? Is there any way that we can count a 5-wave move up here in an expanding move or a contracting move, right? Could this be a WXY and we formed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? This has been a little bit of an expanding move to the upside. It just looks bad. It looks very, very bad. So, for this to be the high and to get a huge pullback down to the mid-low 90K levels. So I am leaning here on the possibility that an ABC flat makes more sense, okay? And let's talk about the most important levels of support. This is higher time frame. So I would like to see the price actually coming down to this order block. This would be the number one level that I would like to see the price of Bitcoin at 99.5K zone, just because, as mentioned, the way that we have moved in this correction and the way that we've moved to claim here $107,000 does look very 3-wavy, right? I cannot count this as a wave 1, wave 2, this a wave 3 because it's a lower high, right? Yeah, it just makes sense for this to be a 3-wave structure, a 3-wave structure to the upside. You do have 5 waves in this movement, which is a contracting move. You do have a little 3-wave structure here, and here you have a 5-wave move to the upside, which makes sense for another zigzag move here to the upside. And what is interesting is that you have hit, I mean, this is an aggressive short entry, I have to say. Very aggressive short entry here. If you did manage to catch kind of the double top, lower high, the lower highs of January, pretty aggressive. Would it be nice to see a little bit more of a choppiness here? This was a scenario that we talked about yesterday. However, we didn't create that choppiness, right? So we did get above 107,000 depending on what exchange you're looking at. And then, we're getting this movement to the downside. I really wanted a little bit more choppiness. It's been a little bit more aggressive, but it's kind of the scenario that we were looking for as well yesterday, right? Where you get a bounce, you get a movement to the upside to get $107,000. And then we're looking for this pretty aggressive move down. I'm not sure if any of you guys managed to get into this short entry at $106,000, $107,000, right? There were some people bearish on yesterday's stream saying, I'm just shorting, we're going to get rejected. This is it. We did get that wick. We got the bounce here at the point of control, value area high in the end, right? Little lower. We did go a little lower and then we got the bounce to this $107,000 range. And then we got this movement to the downside, which is, yeah, we are dropping right now. This is a very, very shallow pullback to get continuation to the downside. I would consider, yeah, this is a very shallow pullback, a double bottom. Kind of interested in a long for a higher low, but if this is going to be an ABC, your B waves can be extremely tricky to get into a position, right? Because B waves can form a flat, right? You dip down beneath these lows, then you get the reaction, then it might bounce. So B waves are very dangerous, despite getting bullish CVDs. Yeah, we're dropping a little bit aggressive here. We got the lows very close. The safest bet here would be break of trend, because then you realize, you want to get this movement here to the upside. If this were to be a higher low on a B wave. An ABC flat Also one scenario, this is something that could be very interesting. Let's see if we do get the reaction from the lows and we do not break down. It would be a little bit of an aggressive long scalp. You can be very defensive. Lots of people did say that they got into the short position yesterday on this double top. We did say that shorting down here was not an option. And people were actually getting into the short here on the rejection of the highs of last Monday. However, I'm actually in the way here of the analysis. Hang on a second. This without, you need to be defensive on this short trade that you did take, and consider maybe later on an SFP from one of these January highs. But it was quick, right? It was kind of a liquidity grab. Very, very difficult. Let me know in the comment section, did anybody manage to get into that short? I got into a small short position early this morning, but just considering the swing trade mentality, okay? Swing trade mentality, I don't want to miss this level. So I'm going to get into a small short position. I just woke up early this morning, already getting that rejection from the highs. And just realizing that this is a swing shorting zone, right? If the price has really completed a 5-wave structure to the upside, and it is going to get a pullback to the mid 90k levels in the next coming weeks, right, or days, or even below 90k, you kind of want to short the highs here, right, or try and get into the double top. It doesn't, depending on your strategy. I like to day trade mainly, but I just thought I don't want to miss this short, right? If this is the high, you can be very protective. It's a classic swing short level, right? And the price could get pretty aggressive to the downside, where lots are expecting a corrective move. And then maybe the price does actually go lower and it does sweep up here, the 93, 92K levels, right? And it actually goes to lower levels. This is the moment where a lot of people are going to say, it's only a pullback. It's only a pullback. But the pullback can get very aggressive, right? And then gets you in doubt, which is kind of the sweet spot that you want to get into, right? It's like a pullback. Okay, yeah, mid 90K level should hold because it's the point of control, right? And the point of control of this range, this is the zone that needs to bounce if we were to come down, right? $97,000. Massive, big resistance that we got here just a few weeks ago, last week of April, right? First week of May. Point of control. If the price does come down to this level in the next coming days, right? Give or take this week or next week, this has to hold, right? It's the strongest level of resistance that we had, right? And it's the point of control. That's the thing, right? This is without a doubt a zone where I would expect a major reaction bounce, right? Give or take mid 90K levels, 95, 96, might get a little bit volatile, choppy here, but you would be expecting a bounce at this region if you were to come down there. So it's just a higher time frame level to take into consideration. What I would be a little bit aware of, if we completed a 5-wave structure, or we still in the completion of a 5-wave structure where we do form a flat here, or a running flat, very possibly, very possible that you could form a running flat, and you still have one more wave to the upside to complete a 5-wave structure, because you can count a double 1-2 in this region, a 3-4-5, 4-5, and then you get the massive corrective move. Just because I do think that another high could be claimed, even though it looks very toppy, right? Let me know your opinion in the comment section, because I know lots of people are going to be interested in shorting this. I shorted late. I'm protected already, but I just realized how we can come down and sweep below $100,000. The potential is definitely there. I'm also aware of the possibility of, instead of a expanding flat, which the target is actually coming down to $99,000, $98,000, a running flat is also possible, which has just been a fast move down. You form a higher low, and then the price decides to get some pumpy action momentum here very aggressively and claims the high again. And that's what you want to see when you claim a high for a top. You want to see a 5-wave impulsive move that looks pretty aggressive. You get explosive volume, right? At least internally. You take out the highs with a nice impulse so you can, really label this wave as a 5th wave. But the fact that we've moved up here I don't know what this is. This is a big fat mess. It's just really corrective. You've got a 3-wave move here. I can't count an impulse to the upside from the lows, regardless if it's this one or this one. So it just all seems still part of a corrective structure, right? Which is kind of a 3-wave move, another 3-wave move yesterday, late yesterday, depending on where you're at, to create that B flat, right? This was a scenario that we have been very much aware of. Sweeping up those January lower highs. These are the last lower highs that we have on the market, right? Since all-time high. This is a massive liquidity pocket. Come on, guys. I'm not sure. Let me know in the comment section. I'm going to read you right now, see if anybody got into the sweep of these lower highs on a short. Realizing where we are at the moment with this expanding move to the upside. But I do think that another high is still yet to come. Right? Of course, with the pullback, that's all nice. Right? Of course, with the situation, with very much aware of this pullback at the $107,000, right? Get an aggressive move down, which is kind of what happened, right? You got the aggressive pump still to claim those highs. And the movement down is going to be pretty aggressive. It usually is if it is an ABC flat, right? It usually is a pretty aggressive move down. And for the moment, it has been pretty fast, right? It's dropped down $5,000. Yeah, I do see this still as part of a correction, guys. The fact that it does look extremely double toppy and it looks awful. It does look like that the price is going to nuke, right? That's what's, I think, a lot of people are going to, really, really think about this double top that the price should nuke right now, right? At least to the mid 90K levels, right? And nuke, that's a pretty aggressive move down. But there is something about this chart that I don't see this being the high, guys. I don't see this being the high for that large pullback, right? Down to the mid 90K levels. There is something about this move that is telling me we're probably going to hit those highs again. And we actually building liquidity again. There's actually quite a significant liquidity being built up to the upside still, which is interesting, right? You would have expected that pump, would have wiped out most of the shorts. And of course, you're going to get some shorts entering right now. I'm interested in the short. I'm in that short, not at the best level, but regardless, being very defensive, realizing the potential of the price going down to at least below 100K. Based on this ABC flat. A running flat would be an expanding flat would be the most obvious scenario here. So price could get a little aggressive. Now, why do I like this level so much? Why do I like this level so much at $99,000 range? Why is this level so nice? Well, first of all, it is an order block. You got an order block. You got a nice little consolidation, not leaving a massive amount of volume, but regardless, you got an order block right over here. When we consider Fibonacci retracement from this pivot low, from the start of this major rally that we had, to the highs, and I'm going to get the highs here from last Monday. And I'm going to take into consideration these highs and not the highs formed yesterday. And the main reason why is because I am aware of the flat here. running flat that could finish in this area, might not take out the lows, or expanding flat, which is, you know, most commonly you do get expanding flats, and there is quite a bit of liquidity here to be swept below $100,000, as we can see on the liquidity heat map, right? So you got that, you know, just at, yeah, but even getting below $100,000, there's a few billion of long liquidation. So it kind of makes sense to kind of sweep up the lows of the range of this last week, right? It would be so nice. It would be the obvious trade, right? Get a major dump, sweep up the lows of the last week, right? Price action. And then, you know, this is the most interesting level. Why is this the most interesting level down here? Well, it has to do with confluence and Fibonacci levels. If I don't like this to be the high, just because how the price action has moved to this high, I don't see this as an impulse, right? It's just, there's no 5-wave clear price action. You would have to use your imagination and get an expanding diagonal here, which is absolutely horrible. And of course, as an expanding diagonal is the least scenario, if you have another count, you would have to take into consideration here the zigzag, right? 3-wave structure, and then the aggressive move down, which is the most common thing when you see an ABC flat. Your C wave is aggressive, it's ferocious, it moves down, it nukes, right? Which is kind of the drop that we had early this morning. In about 5 hours, 4 or 5 hours, price moved down about $5,000, right? It's a pretty aggressive move down for just a few hours, right? Which is very, very common to see on that ABC flat. So just taking into consideration, we ain't going to go too fussy here with the waves and how we need a bounce and all of that. If the price comes down to this area, the 50% Fibonacci from this low to this high, because this is part of a correction, is the level that should maintain some support with this order block that we do have. And when we take into consideration the expanding flats, the target zone is the 1.618 extension, which is sitting around about this zone where I have this blue box. So we take the highs from last Monday and we get the extension to the end of the A wave. Regardless, you can count this low as the A wave as well, or this one. It doesn't really matter. You can count here the three-wave move down and up. And, you know, if you take this low regardless, and then the highs of the B wave, the 1.618 extension is really sitting around the $99,500 range, right? When we consider the most common targets, and this is sitting below the lows of the range. It would be nice to actually see an aggressive move down to hit the order block before it gets a reaction bounce. I mean, this would be the best zone, 99.7 to 99.2 range. The width of the order block, where we do have the 50% Fibonacci and you have the 1.618 extension. And this is still considering that we can create another high, regardless if it's going to be bullish and break all-time high, you know, or not. It's the level. This is the level to pay attention, in my opinion, for that day trade to swing long, right? It might take a few days to recover, but this is the very interesting level without a doubt. Order block, 50%. And why 50% is so important is because if this is another fourth wave, you got your 4-5. If this is another 4-5, you really want to see here, you know, the 50% being respected from this low. I mean, it would be nice for that 50% here with the order block and the 1.618 extension. We don't need to actually bounce from here, but it would be nice just because we have the 1.618 extension for the flat in this area. So we're gonna have to see, right? This is the kind of moment where lots of people are gonna say it's a Bart Simpson pattern, right? We're still forming the Bart pattern, guys, don't get me wrong. He's got a little bit of a few horns, right? You got a few horns here on the Bart Simpson pattern. Oh, that's a very bad. His eyes are sticking out. Lots of people were expecting the Bart Simpson pattern in this range. We were not expecting the Bart Simpson pattern here in this range. We were, throughout this range, we were talking about hitting the highs again, hitting the highs again, hitting the highs again, until we actually broke out very successfully. We were very, very bullish in this range. And I'm actually a little bit concerned. I'm actually still bullish. And I think that we could be forming a higher low in this zone. I mean, it would be nice for a liquidity grab. And we can even form a higher low here, depending on how the price pumps. If it were to pump. But yeah, the most interesting level, without a doubt. If you did get into the short, absolute legend, I would be a little bit defensive. I wouldn't short down here. That's obvious. But if you did short either here or here, you kind of catched the double top scenario, a little bit volatile. I would be defensive, and I would consider taking profits, at the lows of the range. At least take some profits, just realizing the bullish outcome. If we just waterfall from here, then obviously, you want to maintain some of that long position open, without a doubt. But I just see the possibility of the price just sweeping up the lows, finding support here. And if we find support, I do see that reversal when, considering the ABC flat. Let me know your opinion, guys. I mean, this is obviously my opinion. I do not like how we have created this high. I want to see a nice 5-wave impulse to the upside here. The only way that I would consider this, the end, a local high here, we're going to be we are going to correct for the next coming weeks, is if we consider the triangle, right? If we consider the triangle that we talked about, which is this one right over here, and you have that A, B, C, D, E here, right? You have the A wave, B wave, C, D, and E not hitting the base of the triangle. That happens, and then the price ready for the next move, which it did. Then you need to label this as the end of the correction, and then you need to figure out a 5-wave structure to the upside, which you can, but it just looks awful. It's like really looking for something that doesn't exist, right? And which would be this kind of 5-wave structure to the upside. It just doesn't look good. It looks horrible, right? Let's leave it that way. You got your 1-2 setup here in this small little grind. Since you created the lows on Saturday, small little grind up, boom, boom, boom. You form your 3rd wave. It gets an aggressive drop overlapping your pivot 1, where it got the bounce, and then it got the next wave. You do have a 5-wave structure here. It looks horrible, but you do have it. You do have a kind of a horrible 5-wave structure with overlap from your wave 1, which you need to consider as an expanding move. And expanding moves, are very, very rare scenarios. If you have something different, then this looks horrible. It just looks horrible. If you have another scenario, which we do, which is the flat, you need to consider the flat more than this scenario. I mean, if that were to be the count, then this is the high, and we are going to see a much larger pullback throughout the next coming weeks, in my opinion. So a little bit choppy. I mean, whoever got into the shorts from higher, well done. Be very much aware that this maybe is not the high, and I know the bulls are going to agree. Maybe this was not the high. This is just a pullback for a liquidity grab. Preferably, we do sweep up the lows of the range. It's all a liquidity game, right? You can see how we claimed the highs of last Monday, and we got the dump. So claiming the lows of the range would be kind of the perfect scenario, right? Just get a flush of longs, reset the market, and then continue, you know, the possibility of an uptrend to claim the highs in the next coming days. That would be the ideal scenario, right? So we understand it's a liquidity game. We do have a you know, analysis that does, you know, suggest that ABC flat to sweep up the lows below $100,000 would be the ideal scenario for that flat, ABC flat, and then create one more high. The thing is, a running flat is definitely possible still, especially as we are holding the value area low of this trading zone. So we got a little scalp long trade setup here, guys. Okay, it can be a little bit aggressive, but I would be willing to take it if we form a cheeky higher low here at the 0.88. I would be interested in that long of the break of the trend, and I think sweeping up these highs of today is going to be the target zone. It's only a movement of $700-800 depending on your entry, but a break of trend here would be an option without a doubt, with stop loss beneath the low. Just realizing that what we want to see is a three-wave structure if we do get continuation to the downside, right? This looks very one-wavy. So as we move down very aggressively, we got one little wave to the 236 Fibonacci, and very, very shallow pullback, very one-wavy. And what we want to see is some kind of a three-wave structure here. So we're considering this small little scalp long position on the break of trend, which could be interesting. Anybody that shorted over here on the highs, very good, very good. I mean, it is aggressive. You're not seeing any weakness just yet. You know, these are not easy shorts. We had a few January lower highs to have as a guideline, as a possible SFP level, but I have to say, it, you know, was pretty aggressive to get into the short. But your stop loss is just above the high of the wick. We just ever so slightly tapped the last one, not even getting above it $50. I think it's just on the dollar that we tapped that lower high, which you know, we always realize that an SFP from these highs is definitely an option. So whoever got into that short trade from higher is in a very good position right now, right? Because you can basically be defensive, be protective. Would have been nice to get a little bit of choppiness, as mentioned yesterday, but overall a fast move after another liquidity grab was definitely an option. So let's see who got into that long trade, into that short trade, sorry, not long. Long trades are closed. I'd still have a little bit of that long trade, which most of the profits have been taken. Okay, most of the profits have been taken from that long trade. Almost got stopped out here. Almost tapped the take profit zone. And that's the cheeky short. Very defensive on the move down. I just didn't want to miss the chance of the price getting below $100,000 based on the analysis that we've been talking about the last few days, right? I ain't going to talk about the short and miss the short. I did say that I'm going to be sleeping and I'll probably, you know, miss that short position. You know, but early this morning we were trading around this zone. I want to get into the small position, you know, stop loss near the highs. Just realizing about that movement down. Anyway, let's go right away through the comment section. New York Open in the next 30 minutes, 28 minutes, guys. Remember, you do have BTCC, you do have weeks, great exchanges. On weeks, you get very nice bonuses, okay? You got 20% deposit bonus, 25% fee reduction, more than $30,000 in reward bonuses. Check out weeks down below, guys, because, you know, it's a great exchange. You got the fourth link, which is Bluffin. Bluffin also only need an email and a password, guys. You do get $300 deposit bonus just by depositing 2K, guys, on Bluffin. So check out Bluffin. You got massive rewards with very small deposit. Check out the links down below, legends, okay, to trade on these platforms, which only require an email and a password. No VPN needed. Let's go, Devil. I missed the short, was sleeping. I got into the cheeky short, okay? It's not part of my strategy to FOMO into a short on the rejection if I did not catch a good SFP level. But I just realized the potential of the price dumping down below $100,000 based on the analysis that we've been talking, right? I did say yesterday, I'm going to wake up and I'm going to miss the short, guys. I'm sure that I am. And I don't want to put a limit order because I don't know if we're going to break to all-time high. It would be rare for the price to break above all-time high based on the different scenarios that we mentioned yesterday, regardless of the bullish one, which was the triangle, or they flat. You know, we were just saying, you know, we're very likely going to top out here at the $107,000 range, give or take 108, 106, right? It's just going to be a wiki level, and you just need to manage your risk. But, you know, eventually this happened just after midnight my time. Around about 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And just a few hours later, I had to kind of FOMO into the short. Right? Just as a swing trade strategy. Right? Because if this were to be a scalp trade, there's no way in a million years that I would enter that short. But this is taking into consideration the massive resistance that we have in the value area high. And, you know, we moved up in a 5-wave structure. Could this be the end of the 5th wave? Could we get a larger pullback in the next coming days? You know, it's a swing shorting level, that is for sure. It's worth the chance at this zone to get into a swing short that might last a few weeks. So it doesn't really matter your entry if it's at 106 or 105. If the price were to go down to the mid 90K levels, you just want to be in a position, right? So, yeah, it's kind of, I don't want to miss it. We've been talking about this for the last week. You know, the short trades that we mentioned, you know, got stopped out at break even with the rest of the position. That both of the short trades, we did take some profits. They were more as a short scalp. The latest short position was on Tuesday, which was hitting the 7/8 Fibonacci. Of course, you know, got stopped out with the rest of the position with that pump that we had. So, you know, no longer in that short. And you know, very important to take some profits, especially when we realized the bullish case, which was bouncing from here. Anyway, let's see if we do get that break of trend here, because it might give us a little long scalp all the way up. I mean, we do have VWAP. Yeah, it makes sense to get glued to the VWAP in the next coming hours. If we do manage to break this trend, it does make sense. This would only be a little scalp long position, just looking for the VWAP to get revisited, form a 3-wave structure. Let's see if we do get the break of trend here, just for a little scalp, understanding that the price could move in a 3-wave move, right? Or a double bottom, could be aggressive. ABC flat here before continuing to the downside would be a possible option in my opinion. So a local double bottom here would make sense. It is the value area low of this entire trading zone. Well, we kind of lost the value area low. I mean, I wouldn't say that this is lost, because we're getting the bounce and we're getting the choppiness. But as you can see here, we do have the point of control of the entire range and the VWAP. This is going to be a tough nut to crack, right? It might crack it. It might get the resistance, but a kind of a double bottom here would be an interesting scenario. Either break of trend and look for that 3-wave structure. Then we'll see how we react here. We'll get that break of trend at least. Or a double bottom, sweep up the lows, ABC flat. And it's only a scalp all the way up here to the point of control. Basically sweep up the lower highs. Very, very valid long setup here, I see. If we do double bottom, if we don't double bottom and we break down, then we just continue in here. The major collapse, okay? We need to double bottom. We need to form a wick for that entry point. It's going to be a little bit of a sniper. Okay? They're always good for risk management because your stop loss is literally a baby. It's right, really small, and they usually provide the larger risk rewards. Double tops and double bottoms usually give you that good risk to reward ratio, right? Where your stop loss is like a fifth of your take profit zone, depending on your entry, right? This would be your reward. This would be your stop loss. And if the price breaks down from the local low of today, then we just let it go. We could be going down to the, you know, sub 100K, 101, 100K levels. Not really much of a trading zone here in between the lows of last Thursday and the lows of today. If we do not double bottom and come up to the highs, I would not be interested in being in a long here. You know, this could really reclaim this low or even this low. It would be a no trading zone for me unless we double bottom, right? So let's see what happens. Whoever got into a short either late last night or early this morning, very good indeed. It's the kind of short that you want to have open for the next coming days, at least till you dip below $100,000, right? Because it could be a swing short. We don't know how aggressive the pullback can be, but it's definitely a pullback-in zone, right? And yeah, I mean, without a doubt, you know, it just makes sense for the price to kind of pull back somewhere in this region, right? Based on the structure that we formed for the last few weeks. Very 5-wavy, you know, a nice healthy correction in this range for the next coming weeks would make sense. So just looking at the higher time frame picture, guys, I don't know what's going to happen at the end of the day, right? Just be defensive with your trading strategy. You know, I think it does make sense on the higher time frame picture that a larger pullback is very much a possibility. I am still leaning on the scenario of taking out these highs, guys. So I would be a little bit defensive. You know, I've put stop loss at break even. I'm not going to take the chance. Understanding the flat or the running flat here, right? The flat or the running flat. I think there's two options for this scenario. I don't like this high. It's a poor high, even though it's double topped and it's claimed the liquidity. It's a poor high when we take a look at the structure. Just because we haven't moved impulsively, I don't like it for it to be the high. I'm in the short. If we move lower, I'm happy. The longs have taken all of the profits from the long position. Most of them, not all of them, about 80%, as explained yesterday from the long setup, guys. We're taking profit at the highs, right? And interested in a short. I'm interested in a short right now. So, as mentioned the last few days, but we just weren't quite ready for the short in this area the last few days. Shorting here, yes. Value area high in the 0.88. Shorting here, absolutely. We talked about the setup also on YouTube. And the latest one being this one a few days ago, 3 days ago, to look for possibly the highs to be claimed. And you want to get out. If you don't get out at the highs almost completely, take most of the profit, then you're going to be ending up with the price almost at your entry, which is basically what is happening right now for me on the long, which I've taken most of the profits already, so it's going to get stopped out at break even. But imagine having a long position a few days ago and not taking the profits at the highs. We need to follow the waves and realize where we need to take profit. And this was a obvious take profit zone for anybody that was long in here. There's no swing longs here to be taken, that is for sure. It would have been lucky if we would have got to all-time highs, right? Imagine breaking out here and going to $115,000. It was an unlikely scenario. All of the scenarios that we were talking about, regardless the flat or the triangle, which we were looking for a 5-wave move up to get the choppiness here and move down. they were most of the scenarios, right? We didn't have a bullish scenario of breaking to all-time high and going to $115,000. You know, we haven't had this scenario in the last few days. All of the scenarios were leaning for topping out before all-time high on the triangle breakout or on the ABC flat. You know, or there was no all-time high scenario, even though it was fun to ask in the poll yesterday, because we did actually get a lot of all-time high votes yesterday. It was pretty crazy. I think 60% of the people that were watching the stream yesterday, 60% were saying we are heading to all-time high as we were pumping into this resistance, right? Up to the highs of last Monday. Most people were saying all-time high, 60%, still most, then actually going down below 100K. We are only $2,300 away now from 100K, and I've asked the same question from yesterday, where 60% of the people were calling for all-time high as we were hitting the highs of last Monday. Let's see the poll. Let's see the votes. Make sure to get your votes in right now, guys. What do you see? Sub 100K or all-time high? And today, we're actually getting 57% of sub 100K. Yeah, pretty interesting, right? We move with the price action, right? If it's pumping, all-time high. If it's dumping, yeah, we're going to go below 100K now. So there is that possibility of actually missing out from hitting sub 100K based on the running flat. I mean, right, which would be this one. I mean, they're usually rare. They are usually rare. I would say that it would make more sense to sweep up the lows and actually manage to get below $100,000. I mean, it's a liquidity game. There's lots of liquidity here. So it would make sense for that scenario, okay? And I'm just... Very interesting level to get supported is this order block with the 50% Fibonacci from this pump. Okay, considering the flat 99.5K zone, and we know $100,000 is that round psychological, right, 6-digit barrier. So it is a psychological support, and it is also with a 1.618 extension. Considering this low or this low, it doesn't matter. Targets are very similar, right? 1.618 extension with the order block. Yeah, this is a bouncing level without a doubt. I would expect a reaction zone here. I would be interested in a long. Once we get down here, we're gonna have to check the reaction. Well, there's a lot of confluence. You got nice order block. You're sweeping up the lows of the range, which is what we need. And we have a flat, very nice, beautiful flat where we have a three wave, and that is the most common target zone, right? The 1.618 extension, which is sitting where we have this order block. So, you know, what makes a lot of sense is for the price to find a reaction here, regardless if it's going to be a little bit of choppiness and then bounce, or a little bit of choppiness, little bounce, and then maybe down. The reaction is very likely here, just slightly below 100K. So the running flat is also an option. Now it's funny to see a lot of people saying, you know, this is bearish. This is bearish. Lots of people shorting, including myself. You know, congratulations who got into the short at higher levels. I didn't. I was sleeping. But I just didn't want to miss the potential larger correction, right? Whoever shorted late last night or early this morning, wherever you are, you know, we got a possible little scalp long position here. Okay, there might be a little scalp long. I don't like this long just yet. Yeah, I am very much aware of a 3-wave move. Kind of get a 3-wave mover here. But I'm also aware of sweeping up the lows, and that's where I would put my stop loss if I entered here. I would not want to put a stop loss too far away if I'm risking more than what I can take profit from. So I'm going to either wait for the trend break And without a doubt, VWAP and point of control is going to be the target zone to get out, and maybe consider the short, even though I'm in a short already, but it might be a day trade short where, you know, we're going to struggle here. If we do struggle, I would be looking for another leg down. Like the point of control of the range, the VWAP. Let's see, it might, you know, it might break through. Interesting to see some people ever so slightly bearish right now in the poll in the comment section. What stop loss? 70s, 97k is my target, says Suzanne. I like it. Yeah, I mean, this is the thing, right? The price has moved pretty aggressively to the downside. My goodness, I got this messy chart right now. Let me just clean up the chart. The price has moved down pretty aggressively, and it's double topped. This, for the eyes of the viewer, right? For me and you, for the retail guys, me and you, legends, right? We can see retail comment right now, the poll. What comes next for Bitcoin? Well, yeah, a sub $100,000, right? We double topped. Most are going to believe, right? The majority, right? La gran mayoría. They are going to believe that this is, you know, a double top, and a larger pullback is very, very likely, at least to below $100,000, give or take 98, 97. It's you know, it's very, very, well, of course we're going to see this, right? Most of the people are going to see this double top. Most of the people are going to see the double top. It's time for Bitcoin to get a larger pullback, right? Because of the pump that we had in the last few months, a few weeks, not months. It's time for the pullback, right? It is time for a larger pullback. Because it's double topped. I mean, this is something, we got lots of shorts building up. I mean, I don't blame them. I don't blame the shorts that have been getting in the last, you know, 20 hours, or give or take 15, 20 hours. I don't blame the shorts. I'm in that short as well. It just makes sense, right? Who got into a short position, guys? Let me know in the comment section. Yesterday, we were looking for a bit more of choppiness here, I have to say. It would be nice to get a bit of choppiness, but it was relatively fast, and it actually peaked out at 107. It didn't manage to reach 108. But overall, very much aware of that aggressive move down. Let me know in the comment section, did anybody short the market in the last 10 hours, right, at higher levels? Let me know right away. Yeah, could be true. I had a very nice short at 106,200. Have still open, says Suzanne. Absolutely epic, Suzanne. Nice short. Now, just waiting for a pullback to my long target, says Falco. Okay, people not interested in shorting, of course, in a bull market. We are in bull market, right? Shorts need to be very selective. You need to be very defensive. We got a long little scalp here that, you know, might happen right now if we do break the trend. Just to sweep up the highs. It's a movement of $700-800 maybe if we do break this downtrend, just because we do have bullish CVD divergence, I have to say. There is some pretty nice bullish CVDs across the exchanges. Also on Bybit. Bybit has the most aggressive bullish CVDs. Lots of shorts entering on Bybit the last hour. The last couple of hours, actually. And we're still forming a higher low, right? Higher low and very aggressive lower lows. Lots of shorts entering right now, which their stop losses are above the local highs. So if we do break trend here, which, you know, I do think there is a chance, we got a little long scalp potential. Little long scalp potential to hit those highs. Lots of shorts entering here on Bybit. We got 10 million here, 9.4, 8.3. Bullish CVD divergence, still forming a higher low. yeah, we definitely got that chance in the next hour or so to sweep up those lower highs of today. That would be the most obvious trade. But of course, if this is a B wave, B waves can be a flat, right? You can sweep up the lows. So the best option is either wait for the double bottom or wait for the break of trend here to form that zigzag move. Either a three-wave structure, right, and then drop, or, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You know, this was actually the low of the running flat, which is definitely an option. Definitely an option that this could be the lower. I'm not supporting that scenario. I do think that we do go lower. That's, you know, my opinion. Running flats are rare. They are rare, but it is a possibility, right? A running flat is definitely a scenario. Running flat target has already been hit by a mile, which is the 0618. Yeah, running flat has already been hit. The minimum target, which is the 0618. 50% 0618 actually. But most commonly you do get down to the 1.618 extension. Yeah. 1.618 extension here, guys. It's a major internal support, local support level. We've got the order block here, 1.618 extension for the possible target of the flat, and it's also 50% Fibonacci from the movement. So there's some pretty nice Fibonacci confluence just below 100k, 99.5k zone. Kind of a very nice level indeed. Anyway, price is a bit choppy. We've got the New York Open in 5 minutes, so we might be seeing a little bit of volatility. Shall we take a look at Ethereum to look for a setup? Dollar index getting the resistance from the value area low of the last few years. Very nice indeed. Let's see if dollar index, I do expect lower in the next coming months for the dollar index eventually after this bounce. Let's take a look at the ES, see what's going on. Do we have a CME gap? I haven't even checked, guys. I haven't checked because I don't really trade CME gaps. They could provide resistance or support, but with that volatility from yesterday, to get the stock market here on the 1 hourly to check the volatility. Let's take a look at the BTC CME gap. I haven't even checked because I really don't care. But just for the sake of it, hang on a minute. This is the Bitcoin dominance. Did we form a gap or not? I know people love gaps. Oh, yeah, yeah, that gap was already filled. Was that the gap? Yeah, this was the gap. No gap. Not interested. Let me know, guys. I'm going to go through the comment section right now. I think there's a local little scalp if we break trend. I'm going to keep it simple, just because it would make sense to form a three-wave structure with bullish CVD divergence. Anybody that wants to get along here right now, it's on you. I'm going to wait for the trend break. Okay, going to be better safe than sorry, right? Better safe than sorry. Get a little confirmation to see if we can form that three-wave structure at least to claim the lower highs of today, where we do have the VWAP, and the VWAP is a magnet, right? VWAP is a magnet. So let's see if that volume weighted average price can get the magnet here of the price, which is where we have the point of control also of this range. Well, let's see if we do get that trend break now in the next coming minutes. Very possible to give us that confirmation. It's on stock market open, so it's going to be a little bit tricky. We got the stock market open right now, and hopefully we ain't going to get a dump in pump, a pump in dump, or dump in pump. Probably going to get that start of volatility right now in 2 minutes, as we do have the stock market open. Let's put NASDAQ here to see the stock market. Massive rally on the stock market, guys. This is without a doubt. S&P 500 looks much better as a V shape. I'm leaning for new all-time highs on the stock market in the next coming months. I mean, obviously a pullback would make sense, but all of this looks corrective. You got a three-wave move to the downside, which has extremely overlapped for this to be some kind of an impulsive move down. So it looks pretty good for the stock market to reach new all-time highs in the next coming months. High probability that all of this is going to be corrective. I mean, we already V-shaped here, literally, right? We got that open in the next minute. Let's take a look at the comp section. Yeah, me too, I have to say, right? This is why, this is why we're considering the flat, right? The running flat even. Or sweeping up the lows. But a running flat is definitely possible. You have a three-wave move down here, sideways, WXY. Another three-wave move up throughout the weekend, from Thursday to the weekend. A sharp drop for a running flat, and now the price is going to come up to the highs, right? I don't think so, that's going to happen. But, somebody said here, I feel YouTubers are looking at I haven't checked because I really don't care. Legend. Yeah, I'm not. Everybody knows about me and the CME futures gap, right? I don't give a damn about CME futures gap. It's just a waste of time. Of course, they could provide support and resistance, but I don't care if it gets filled today or tomorrow or any of that. But they do provide support and resistance, that's for sure. Long or short, I'll tell you what, if we break this trend, I'm going to look for a possible long scalp all the way up to 103,500, give or take. But we just got the New York Open right now. I don't trust the New York Open. If it pumps, then you're looking for a dump. If it dumps, then you're probably looking for a pump. I just don't trust New York Open. Let's see what NASDAQ is doing here. With the open, it is getting a bit of a pump. Nice little pump on NASDAQ after sweeping up the lows of the week. You know what they say, when the open is pumping, expect a dump later on, right? So yeah, let's see if we do manage to break this trend, and that is all the pure speculation of forming a three-wave structure. But I need that break of trend here, I need a bit of volume, and then I would say that, yeah, we're probably going to get that reversal all the way up here to the highs. But for the moment, downtrending. A double bottom is an option, liquidity grab. Just going to wait, guys. Something's going to happen. You either break down, then no long. If you wick down beneath the low, I would be interested in the sniper long, stop loss beneath the low, very small stop loss, and then look for the price to claim the highs of today. This is the kind of movement that I'm looking for, right? With the low being hit or the not, it doesn't matter. Break of trend, hit the highs. Let's see if we do break the trend here with a bit of volume. And that's all with the theory of looking for a three-wave structure. It would make sense to form a three-wave structure here for a, internal ABC, right? ABC right there. At least a three-wave structure. Could it break out and form an impulse as it's formed a higher low? Maybe. But it's, we're just waiting for the break of trend here. Or sweep up the low, and I'm looking for a double bottom for a possible internal flat. Trend break or double bottom. Let's see. If it breaks down, there's no long. If it breaks down very aggressively and you do not maintain the lows of today, there's no long. If we break trend, a little attempt can be an option. Pretty aggressive low. Stop loss is going to be a little bit of an issue. Risk to reward is not going to be too massive on the possible break of a trend. Want to be cautious on fake outs here as well. Want to be a little bit cautious on the fake out. The bullish CVD divergence are there. Lots of shorts on Bybit. So yeah, it does look like that we could get that bounce. Yeah, we're just about to break trend right now. I would be targeting at least the VWAP, which is sitting at the highs. Yeah, stock market is pumping quite nicely for now. Stock market is pumping quite nicely, giving a little bit of bullish momentum. We are attempting to break that trend. And the target zone for this, which we are going to be having a little bit of resistance, is the VWAP and the point of control of this entire range, right? Would make sense. It is a little bit of a double bottom with a higher low. I hate these. I hate this, and at least for the moment, there's no trend break. But yeah, to catch this higher low is I don't like this. When you dip below the 0.88, yeah, it's very, very hard. I would rather look for the double bottom. Sweep up the low and enter the trade. Stop loss at the low. Look for the highs or break the trend, which is still not happening. Still no trend break, unfortunately. And this is just for a local scalp, right? Just to have something locally. Higher time frames look very interesting. Higher time frames doors look very interesting. If we were to break down in the next coming hours, the best level of support beneath the lows of the range of last week is 99.5k zone. Order block. You have the possible expanding ABC flat. I don't like this high. I don't like this high at all. It doesn't look like a top. I think a lot of people are flipping bearish right now. A lot of people are flipping bearish. And as someone said a lot of YouTubers are expecting sub 100k. I guess that has to be bullish, right? I do see the running flat potential. I also see this a possibility, but a running flat is definitely a scenario. Okay, it's definitely possible. Are we pumping right now? We're breaking trend, so yeah, that's a little bit of a... Are we attempting to break trend here? Let me just zoom in on the lower time frame. Yeah, it is breaking, guys, so that's a little long setup. Stop loss beneath the last higher lows. And I would be targeting the highs here. The VWAP and the highs of today. I wouldn't go too crazy. Could be a fake out. It would make sense for a three-wave structure. At least to sweep up the lower highs of today. Let's take a look at the got some, yeah, we don't have any bearish CVD divergence for the moment, which is good. We got some pretty intense bullish CVD divergence, especially on Bybit. Got lots of shorts entering the market here in the last few hours, which is good. It's good to get that squeeze at least to the highs here. It's good to at least get that squeeze up here to these highs. Let's see if we can get that push. And stock market doesn't ruin the party. Stock market is pumping, so that's good. We don't want to see it dumping. So let's see if we do get that squeeze. Everything points out that Bitcoin could be hitting that $103,500. Let's get that breakout. Let's get that squeeze all the way to these levels. We got the bullish CVDs. We don't have bearish CVDs, which is good. Just yet. Let's see if we squeeze out and continue pumping. Just a little scalp here to hit these highs. We're breaking trend. Would make sense. We got the VWAP and the point of control. So anybody that, you know, getting into this trend breakout, let's squeeze out here. This is a take profit zone without a doubt. Okay. Take profit zone as soon as we sweep those highs. Let's go Bitcoin. Push, 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 push. Let's stop out those Bybit shorts here, because there's been a lot of, you know, there's been some really nice bullish CVDs here. Let's see if we can squeeze out. Stock market is helping. Stock market is helping here with the pump. Currently getting a little bit of resistance from this little wall here. Vamos, 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 vamos. Little double bottom or a zigzag. That is the idea here. Little double bottom or a zigzag. That is the idea here, to see if we can sweep up the lower highs of today. I don't like when the stock market opens with a pump. I think most of the people have been bearish though throughout the news coming out yesterday, right? About China, new tariffs and rest of it. I didn't even pay attention to it, but I had that feeling that a lot of people were starting to become, they had a little bit of bearishness. That's why we did get that dump on Bitcoin, right? Also because of the resistance, we don't have to, you know, the resistance and the rejection was definitely there. We talked about the very likely scenario of rejecting from here, either in the ABC flat or forming a 5-wave structure at the $107,000 levels. And of course it's news related. I think I did see some news regarding, you know, the new tariffs and rest of it. This is why we dropped